Welcome to Honest Car Reviews. My name is Eric. This is the facelifted Jaguar F Type P450 R-Dynamic. The F Type has been a bit of a conundrum. A modern E-Type, but has the new F Type become as monumentally successful as the E-Type did? The problem with the F Type is that it's trying to invade on hostile land a low-slung sports car with around 450 horsepower. Which brand do you go for first? Perhaps a Porsche 718 Cayman GT4, GT 4.0. Why not go a bit old school and a Ford Mustang GT? Here's a curveball, Toyota Supra. Or why not go for the new Corvette C8? Then you have the other German options such as the BMW M2 CS, the new BMW M4 Competition, and the Audi RS5, Mercedes C63 Cabriolet, and the non-cabriolet. There is a smorgasbord, or in Sweden as we say, smörgåsbord, of cars to choose from. Of course, in different price classes, but still with around 450 horsepower or even more. Speaking of which, this F-Type R-Dynamic or F-Type P450, we'll get to the naming in just a second. This costs at just around 120,000 euros. The higher echelon for a sports car of this performance type. This is the facelifted version, which means that you have thinner front lights. Before there was a bar that was here, now it's more open. In the rear we'll find a slightly different rear light design, and of course the introduction of P450 name, and inside you'll have some really minor tweaks. Of course, with a facelift, some damping changes, but those won't be visible, and I almost guaranteedly can say that you won't feel those changes unless you are a professional racing driver. And it is raining right now in Sweden and a bit windy, but that is Swedish midsummer for you. So take that with a bit of salt. I have this car now, I need to review it. I think that this is an objectively beautiful car. It takes me back to simpler times with a simple yet beautiful design that is almost timeless. The canvas roof, however, is not my thing, and especially as a cabriolet, it looks the best with the top down. However, a good thing with a canvas roof is that it doesn't take up as much storage space as a metal one. And we'll get into the storage space, and here is where everything falls apart just a bit, because here is a huge space that is taken up by the battery, which means that you have a really small area of flat surface. This is not good in any shape or form, and being that sports car slash GT cruiser that you probably want to take on some trips, I think that the rear luggage space is too limited. I don't know if you can see this, but the rear exhaust tips are actually angled slightly upward. The tires are Pirelli P0, they're 295 in the rear, they're absolutely enormous for a car this size. And in the front, let's see, they are 255 in the front, so staggered combination. And these tires are really grippy. They feel a bit stiffer when you drive on the road than the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. But we'll get into the car because it is starting to rain a bit. Nice Jaguar touch. This is also the rear-wheel drive option, so you have rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive option, but it's definitely a smaller car and you sit really low down. And inside we have two really sporty seats, and they are actually quite huggy, but since they are fully adjustable, they are great for long journeys. The update includes this new digital gauge cluster and a slightly new revised infotainment system. This infotainment system is literally the same as in the Range Rover Sport SVR that I tested, and I think that it works just a tiny bit better in this than in the Range Rover. But everything is the JLA product, and it's evident that this hasn't got the same newest infotainment system and the same layout as the Jaguar I-Pace or the Land Rover Defender. So that, I feel, is a bummer. This is also 12-inch and it shows all the necessary info. I mean, it's not the best, and comparing it once again with a Porsche 911, there are levels apart. I like that there are physical buttons for the climate control. It takes me back to the both new and old Subaru BRZ, Toyota GT86 or GR86 with the free dial layout, and tactile feedback is nice, but if you twist it a bit too slow, it feels like it gets in between the different distinct click. So you have to be a bit firm when you want to change your temperature. Everything regarding driving is close to your hand or close here. So the different modes, there's rain, ice, snow, normal or standard, comfort, and then there's dynamic. And then you can also press this button, and then you can create a more individual setting. So a bit softer suspension, maybe you don't want as aggressive gear changes, you can change those individually. Right now pressing the brake, you can see that, some G meters, stopwatch, navigate the digital gauge cluster, setting the cruise control, which is not active. It is not active. 120,000 euros, no active cruise control. I don't know what that is about. Real metal, aluminium, whatever they are, pedals to shift up and down. The metal hasn't been taken out from the plus and the minus as in the Range Rover Sport SVR. Really cool that they have the AC that goes up and can also go down. Pretty cool feature. Dark colored plastic, one unison plastic, everything here, and the finish here, the really hard. Just the side in general feels, I mean, it doesn't look good at all for a car of this price point, and especially as in every single other JLA product, these freaking controls for the side windows haven't changed at all. Press this button, can keep your drinks, old USB type, charging ports, and a bit of storage. I'll start driving and talk about the different engine configurations or how Jaguar has changed the engine lineup. Because gone is the supercharged V6 and instead we have this. So P450, quite self-explanatory, 450 horsepower, 580 Newton meter, and it is the 5-liter supercharged V8, which means that it's detuned, so it doesn't have the full fat 575 horsepower. That is for the new Jaguar F Type R, not the SVR as it once was. No V6 in Europe, but we still have the turbocharged, single turbocharged straight 4-cylinder, the Ingenium, that is found in quite a lot of other Jaguars and Land Rovers, but of course quite a bit different in terms of sound. 300 horsepower, but that's not the car that we're testing right now. I feel that this is a perfect mix between a GT cruiser and a sports car. Because of the short rear wheelbase, it is lovely to turn into corners and rotate. and you have the punch from the engine to drag you out of it, and you have massive brakes to stop you. The suspension is double wishbone, and the car, when you look at the spec sheet for the cabriolet with me in it, it is close to 1.8 tons. So it is a chunky boy. This car is built around the supercharged engine, and I'm in dynamic, so let me shift down, use the pedals behind the steering wheel, and there are active valves, so they open up at 3.5, and the sound from this engine when you get over that limit is amazing. I mean, truly amazing. Even though it is the same engine as the Range Rover Sport SVR, it has been tuned to produce a completely different sound. So this is more howling. It sounds like an animal. Long journeys, yes, the cabriolet lets in quite a lot of sound, but I think that it truly handles a really fine balance between being a sports car and a GT cruiser. And it has an acceptable traction control system, quite aggressive in the normal setting, but when you turn it off, it lets you play quite a lot. The transmission is an 8-speed automatic from ZF, and a lot of cars have ZF, but that is because it's such a modular design. So it can really be fitted for your specific need. So in this case, 450 horsepower and 580 Newton meters. This car goes from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.5 seconds, which isn't the fastest by a long shot. And when you think about it, this supercharged V8 with the same amount of size, it is as big as Ford Mustang GT's engine. It produces the same amount of horsepower. If you really stretch it out, you can get down to 0.79 liters per 10 kilometer, and that's if you really stretch it out. On the highway, realistically, just above 1. In the city, 1.2, 1.3, and if you really add it, above 2 easily. And that's to be expected from a car of this size, this performance, so nothing to complain about there. I find it difficult that much of the exoticness of the F Type is that it is British, it is different, and therefore we can accept that it's not as good in terms of numbers when compared to its competitors. There are evidentially a huge amount of other vehicles to choose from in this power category. And when you look at the price, does the F Type justify itself? The answer is unfortunately a very simple no. But a cabriolet sports car is not a logical purchase. For my final verdict, let me get a bit philosophical. The V8 is a double-edged sword. The heritage is enormous and the feelings it can produce is almost unmatched. But heritage can sometimes become a faint memory unless it is cared for. And the nature of the V8, and perhaps the V8, or maybe it is the supercharger, makes it feel dated. And that's my final review for the Jaguar F Type convertible. See you next time.